Welcome back to Mr. DuPage's classroom. This lesson is for my Algebra 2 class. It is 5.2, Day 4, Dividing Rational Expressions. What we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to factor, state any restrictions, use the reciprocal, and simplify. If you remember when we went through our steps to simplifying rational expressions, I told you to go ahead and skip step 5. Well, now we're going to go ahead and fill out step 5. Okay? If we have a division problem, what we're going to do is flip the second fraction and change the sign to multiplication. Okay. Once we change it to multiplication, then it's exactly like every problem that we've worked through. What we need to remember is we want to use steps 1 through 4 before we go ahead and flip our fraction. Okay. Once we have flipped the fraction, we need to check for new restrictions. So we could have restrictions before we flip our fraction, and then we could have new restrictions after we flip our fraction. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these problems. So just like every other problem that we've done so far, what we're going to do is check out each piece individually to see if is anything we can do with it. So problem number 1, I have 14x in the top left corner. Is there anything I can do with 14x? There is not, so I'm going to leave that alone for now. Then I look at the top right, 7x to the third. Nothing I can do with that, so I can go ahead and leave that alone. The bottom left, it says 5. There's nothing I can do with 5. And then the bottom right is 10. There's nothing I can do with 10. All 4 of those pieces are monomials, so I'm supposed to jump to step 4 in our steps list, and that is to check for restrictions. Well, in this problem, as it sits, there are no restrictions, okay? What we need to do now is, because it is a division problem, what we're going to do is we're going to flip this second fraction. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. The first fraction stays exactly the same, so 14x over 5. I'm going to change my division sign to a multiplication sign, and I'm going to flip my second fraction. So it's going to now be 10 over 7x to the third. That is the reciprocal. It told us to use the reciprocal. Well, once you flip that second fraction, that is the reciprocal. That's what that means, okay? So now what we need to do is go back to step 4 real quick, and we're going to check to see if we have any restrictions. Well, now that I have 5 on the bottom left, there's no restriction there, but I have 7x to the third on the bottom right. So I can have a restriction from 7x to the third. Cannot be equal to 0. Remember, I said if you have a monomial in your denominator and it has a variable, then your restriction will be that it's going to be the variable cannot be equal to 0. Okay. Now that I have it set up like our normal multiplication problems, what I'm going to do, I can either multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom, or I can start splitting these numbers up to make them as small as possible. What I'm going to do is just start splitting the numbers up. So I'm going to split up the number 14. What are my multiples of 14? Well, it would be 2 times 7. Then I'm going to check my multiples of 10. That would be 2 times 5. And now I cannot forget about my x. Make sure I have my x there. Over. Is there anything I can split 5 into? There is not. It's just going to stay 5. Then I have 7. There's no way to split up 7. And then I have 3 x's, so times 1, 2, and 3. Now that I have everything as simplified as I possibly can get it, I'm going to go ahead and start crossing things out. So these 5's can go away, these 7's can go away, and one of my x's can go. So I'll end up with 4 over x squared, and that is our final answer. So as you can see, for the most part, this is exactly what we've been doing. Is just one extra step where we need to flip our second fraction and check for restrictions a second time. Okay? So let's look at problem number 2. I have 4 in the top left. There's not really anything I can do with that. I have 6 in the top right. Nothing I can do with that. X plus 2 in the bottom left. There's nothing I can do with that. But I do have 2x plus 4 where there is something I can do with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the rest of my problem with the division sign still. I can take out a GCF of this 2x plus 4. If I take out a 2, I end up with x plus 2. Okay? Now I need to go ahead and check for my restrictions. Obviously, x plus 2, there can be a restriction, and x plus 2. But since they are exactly the same, I only need to write down the restriction one time. So let's go ahead and find that restriction. Well, x plus 2 cannot equal 0, so x cannot equal negative 2. Now that I have everything as simplified as I possibly can get it, I've done my restrictions. What I'm going to do is go ahead and flip this second fraction and change my division sign. So I'm going to start rewriting my problem. 4 over x plus 2. Here I want to change my division sign to a multiplication. I need to flip my second fraction, so it'll be 2 times x plus 2 over 6. Okay? Now that I have it done that way, what I can do is actually make this all into one big fraction. So I've checked for, I've flipped my fraction now. What I need to go do is go back to step 4 and check for a new restriction. I still only have an x plus 2 in the bottom, so I don't have any new restrictions. Now that I've checked for restrictions, I've done my step 5. We're on to step 6. Step 6 is to go ahead and cross things out. As you can see, though, I have a 4 that can be broken into 2 times 2. I have a 6 that can be broken into 2 times 3. And I have this 2 just sitting here, right? Well, so I'm not going to break my 4 up because this 2 is going to help me reduce my 6. So what I'm going to do is rewrite my problem with the 6 in front. All right? So 6 turns into 2 times 3 times x plus 2. The 2's can go. The x plus 2's can go. I end up with 4 over 3 as my answer. Okay? Let's go on to problem number 3. I have 3x in the top left. There's nothing I can do there. I have 3x minus 3 in the top right. There is something I can do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start rewriting my problem. Use my division sign still. I can get a GCF out of 3x minus 3. So I take out a 3, end up with x minus 1. I need to check my bottom left. It's going to stay x minus 2. And I can factor my x squared minus 3x plus 2, this right here. Okay. To go ahead and factor, I'm going to have to use generic factoring. So 2 sets of parentheses. X goes in the beginning. 2, there's only one way to multiply to 2. That's a positive 2, or a 2 and a 1. We need it to add to a negative number. So both 2 and 1 need to be negative. At this point, I have simplified all those pieces as far as I can. Excuse me. So I've gone through step 3. Now I need to check step 4, which is my restrictions. So x minus 2 cannot equal 0, and x minus 1 cannot equal 0. Notice I only did x minus 2 once because even though there's 2 of them here, I have 2 x minus 2's. I only have to do it one time. So x cannot equal 2, x cannot equal 1. At this point, all my restrictions are done. I have simplified everything as far as I can. So now I've gone through step 4. Since it is division, I have to go to step 5, which is to flip my second fraction. So I rewrite my first fraction the same way it was. When I flip my second fraction, let's just actually flip it real quick. X minus 2, x minus 1 over 3 times x minus 1. Now that I have it flipped, what I can do is go ahead and make this all one big fraction. I can put a few multiplication signs in there if that'll help you. If it doesn't help you, don't worry about it. Before I start crossing anything out, though, I need to double check to see if I have any more restrictions. I've used x minus 2 cannot equal 0 and x minus 1 cannot equal 0, so I'm good there. Now that I know that all my restrictions are stated, I can start crossing things out. So x minus 2, 3 and 3, x minus 1, x minus 1. That means I'm left with just this x. So my answer is x. All right. On to number 4. Just like before, if I have a binomial that's sitting by itself, I want to go ahead and put it over 1. I'm going to check each piece by itself. I have x squared minus 36. Well, x squared minus 36 is the difference of 2 squares. So I'm going to set up 2 sets of parentheses. X goes in the front. That comes from the square root of x squared. Now I need to check for my back number is going to come from the square root of 36. So the square root of 36 is 6. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the back. Anytime I have the difference of two squares, one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative. Put that over. I have my 2x here. There's nothing I can do with 2x, right? That's divided by, what can I do with my x plus 6? Nothing, so x plus 6 over, and I have 1. There's nothing I can do with 1, so I'm going to leave it. I have everything as factored out as it possibly can be, so I'm through step 3. On to step 4 is to check for restrictions. The only restriction I can have right now is this 2x. So 2x cannot equal 0, which means x cannot equal 0. At this point, now that I've stated my restrictions, I'm on to step 5. Because it is division, I need to go ahead and flip my second fraction. So I'm going to have x plus 6, x minus 6 over 2x. My second fraction needs to be flipped, and my sign needs to change to a multiplication sign. So now it's 1 over x plus 6. Remember, I can go ahead and make that all one big fraction now. I need to check for a new restriction. I've used this 2x cannot equal 0, but what about x minus 6? I need that new restriction. So x minus 6 cannot equal 0, which means x cannot equal 6 either. At this point, I have all my restrictions stated. I have everything as factored as possible. I'm going to go ahead and cross out what I can. I'm left with x minus 6 over 2x. Okay? On to problem 5. Just like in our last problem, I have a binomial by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1. X plus 11, there's nothing I can do with that, so I'm going to leave it alone. There's also nothing I can do with this 1, so I'm going to go ahead and put that x plus 11 over 1. Okay. Now I'm going to check my top right, which is the x squared minus 121. Well, 121 is a perfect square. The square root of 121 is 11. So I'm going to go ahead and make two sets of parentheses. The first blank will be x. The second blank will be 11. One needs to be addition. One needs to be a subtraction. Over. Nothing more I can do with x plus 5. So I factored everything as far as I possibly can. At this point, I'm through step 3. I need to look into step 4, which is checking for my restrictions. So x plus 5 is my only restriction at this point. X plus 5 cannot equal 0. So that means x cannot equal negative 5. Now that I have my restrictions stated, I can go on to step 5, which is to flip my second fraction and change my division sign to multiplication. So my first fraction stays the same. Change it to multiplication. So x plus 5 comes up top. X plus 11, x minus 11 goes to the bottom. I want to make it one big fraction. In order to do that in this situation, all I need to do is put parentheses around those pieces. Now I need to check for new restrictions. Well, I have not done anything with x plus 11 as a restriction, so I'm going to do x plus 11 cannot equal 0. X cannot equal negative 11. And I need to do something with this x minus 11, so x minus 11 cannot equal 0, so x cannot equal 11. Now that I've stated all restrictions, everything is factored as far as it can go, I can start crossing things out. X plus 11 will go away. That will leave me with x plus 5 over x minus 11. And I am done there. On to our last problem. Same situation as we've been doing this entire time. I'm going to look at my top left first. It's just an x. I'm going to have to go ahead and leave that alone. Top right is 2x plus 2. Well, 2x plus 2 can be factored using a GCF. The GCF would be 2, which would leave me with x plus 1. Now I'm going to look at my bottom left, which is just this x minus 2. X minus 2, nothing else I can do with it. The bottom right, on the other hand, is x squared minus x minus 2. I can go ahead and use generic factoring on that. So if I use generic factoring on that, I end up with x and x in the first blank. There's only one thing that multiplies to 2. That's 2 times 1. I need it to be a negative x is what I'm adding to. So my 2 needs to be negative. My 1 needs to be positive. Now that I have everything as factored as I possibly can, need to go ahead and get my restrictions. I have this x minus 2 and another x minus 2, which means I only have to work with that one time. X minus 2 cannot equal 0, which means x cannot equal positive 2. I have this x plus 1, so x plus 1 cannot equal 0. That means x cannot equal negative 1. Now that I have everything factored, I've stated my restrictions. I need to flip my second fraction and flip the division sign. So x over x minus 2 stays the same. I'm going to multiply x minus 2, x plus 1 go to the top. I'm flipping my fraction here. And 2 times x plus 1 come to the bottom. Make it one big fraction by go ahead and putting some multiplication signs in there. Now I need to double check to make sure that I have all the restrictions I need. I have x minus 2 still. I've already done x minus 2 cannot equal 0. I have x plus 1. I've already done x plus 1 cannot equal 0. So I'm good there. At this point, I can go ahead and start crossing things out. So x minus 2 goes away. X plus 1 goes away. I finish up with x over 2. So that is the end of our lesson. The biggest thing that you need to take away from this is these problems start out exactly the same way as we did with every other problem that we've done that's like this, okay? Every other simplifying rational expressions. Because that's the case, but it is a division sign, what we're going to do is we're going to run through steps 1 through 4 every single time with these problems first. Once we are done with steps 1 through 4, if it is division, we need to flip our second fraction, turn it into multiplication, and then check again for restrictions. So we're going to go through step 5, come back to step 4. After we found our new restrictions, if there are any, then we'll jump to step 6, which is to go ahead and simplify everything, cross out what we can, and rewrite our answer. If you have any questions over this stuff, please make sure you come in and see me. There is one more piece to this note sheet that I want you to be aware of. On the back side here, it says, let's see what you got. What I'm going to do is I'm going to offer, let's go 5 points of extra credit for anyone who can bring that into me completed and correct. I will give you enough points to make up for one note sheet. Okay? If you take it slow, you go step by step, that should not be that big of an issue. Go ahead and bring that into me. Let me see it, and I will give you 5 points extra credit. All right? Like I said, please make sure if you have any questions, bring them to me. Ask me when you come into class. Come in before school. Do something along those lines so that we can get you set up. All right? Well, thank you very much for watching the video, and have a great day.